Hey everybody, I'm Jeff Monroe, and this is Jason Blackledge, and welcome to Beyond the Struggle. Jason forced me to do the intro.
I'm not going to keep introducing you,
Well,
Jeff.
well,
I'm not going to keep
we'll talk
introducing you
about
every time, man.
we'll talk about. Maybe we can go 50-50, man. You know, I don't like to talk too much. You're the talker, man. So we were talking a little bit about, hey man, what do we want to talk about? So we try to come up with these ideas. It's part of it. One of the things that I just wanted to kind of bring up is it's a Woodlake podcast. We want to talk about treatment and how the treatment industry's changed over the years.
Look, not to interrupt you, I think it's important, man, that people, that clients,
or potential clients that are looking for somewhere to go, somewhere to seek treatment, what we can do and what we can treat. We were talking about in the last episode, if you remember, just kind of where we started in treatment. I started in this industry, almost 9 years ago. So
it was much different then.
It was a lot different. We still treated co-occurring disorders, right? But it was really streamlined towards the primary care was substance abuse. Right?
Can you, just for the people that maybe don't know, the audience, right? What does co-occurring disorders mean?
Co-occurring, so anything underlying issues below substance abuse.
So so substance abuse plus.
Substance abuse plus, right? And so, like back when I started, you saw, there's a lot of substance abuse, right? And that's what we primarily treat. You come into treatment, your primary diagnosis is substance abuse, right? And that's what you as CITs, RACs, that's what you can treat as substance abuse. Your LPCs can treat mental health. But we have become an industry that is treating so many things other than, right, just the substance abuse, because there are other underlying issues,
Absolutely.
right? I had underlying issues. You had underlying issues, and it's right. But that's the thing about it is that's what we're able to do today, right? It's changed so much, man.
It has.
You see the clients that we get today is nowhere like the clients that you were in treatment with.
Yeah, it is. I've told you this before. The last time I went to treatment was at Woodlake. The last 6 times I went to treatment was at Woodlake.
Yeah, I think you said you've been to treatment a few times. I think you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Starting to debate on whether or not we need to have you on it.
But it is, man. It's like I remember being in Woodlake the last time, and there was an individual there that was struggling, and with, like you're talking about, more so than just drugs and alcohol, right? And that was really the first time that I can recall as a client seeing that. And I didn't know how to handle the situation, Good thing there were people there, the staff members, all the way from the techs to the counselors, they were just kind of telling me, you got to chill out. It's just something that you don't understand. It's just, and now working in the treatment industry is seeing how much more of that, like you talked about, underlying issues, whether it be mental health. I mean, we could go on and on. Unresolved grief, unresolved trauma,
depression,
anxiety, all this different stuff.
Well, and now we take in more, schizoaffective, schizophrenic, manic depressive disorder, right? We take the whole spectrum.
Yeah.
Right? And I think we do a pretty good job of treating that, right? And I look back on kind of when I started in the industry, and I'm sure it was a lot different when Randy first started this business too. Of just treating the straight liquid alcoholic, and those that were using just your I'd say run-of-the-mill substances, right?
It's not that anymore.
Right, it's not.
It's crazy.
And I think that's a big contributing factor to why we see what we see today.
Is what you're saying, the substances?
Oh, absolutely.
The drugs are changing.
The drugs are changing. And I mean, over the years, it's been this synthetic,
Yeah, it's wild.
what it's done to people. I've seen people come in 9 years ago and come in and have not taken that first step of surrender.
Yeah.
And so they continue to come into treatment. And the person they were 9 years ago to the person they are today is completely different,
Yeah.
right? They have, new diagnoses that are more prevalent with like mental health diagnosis, right? Through years of putting their body through these substances, right? I mean, it's changing, and it's changing the industry. And along with that, when our industry changes, the insurance companies change, and they want you to accept this, they want to do this, and then they don't want to do this, and these are the people that need the help the most, and you're having to justify why why they should stay in treatment, right? Back in the day, it was 90-year treatment, right?
90-year?
90 days.
Yeah, what kind of treatment
90 years, man.
No wonder you only went one time, Jeff.
But I mean, we still do 90 days treatments, because we do a continuum of care. We do residential, we do intensive outpatient, and we do outpatient. We also do the sober living, and so there's a continuum of care. But it was a lot different.
Yeah.
Back in the days, insurance companies were a lot different.
Yeah, Ethel started as a 90-day program, didn't it?
Ethel, yeah, it was when I first started. It was kind of the tail end where the insurance companies stopped accepting the 90-day and stuff like that, or wanted you to have some other things that went along with it. And then, of course, you had the Medicaid expansion, right? Mm-hmm. Which brought in some other clients, and so they were only given residential treatment at this many days. So it changed the industry a little bit, but along with that, it was just the overwhelming influx of the different substances that change the characteristics of and behaviors of clients.
Yeah, large introduction of substances.
Absolutely.
Right. We've seen all the look. If you weren't there for it at this point, you've seen the movies and the Netflix shows and the this of just in the last 15, 20, I guess probably not even that far, man, of just a large introduction of drugs into the population.
Yeah, and with the introduction of that, we have to change. Yeah. Times are constantly changing, so as a facility that treats drugs and alcohol, we have to change as well to meet the needs of the clientele that we see, right?
Yeah. And I think look, man, not to cut you off, but I want to, before you move on.
You've said that twice, so you have to mean to
I
cut
just
me
say
off
that
at
to
some
sound polite, dude, but I'm going to cut you off. That's what
I think you're getting back with me about a couple of episodes when I cut you off.
And now I don't even remember what I was talking about. No, you were talking about, like, we want to be able to help the client, right? Like, first and foremost, Woodlake wants to be able to help the person that's asking for help. I always joke with people, like, Woodlake's not cold calling people saying, hey, you want to go to come to treatment? It's like these individuals are reaching out saying,
I need help.
I need help.
Right.
And what they need help with is continuing to change. And so we want to be able to, first and foremost, help. And so if we have to change to be able to do that, and we've done a pretty good job with it.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing, Randy and I kind of talk a good bit about, changing and meeting industry needs and what can we do to change and to help more people. And even at an adolescent level now, right? It's such a strong influence in adolescence with the different chemicals, with the different substances, We have an adolescent IOP in Hammond to try to meet the needs there, right?
And we're taking
that's
17-year-olds in residential now, like down to
See,
that's crazy, man.
Back in the day when when I went, and the multiple times that you went,
Stop it, dude.
it wasn't like you didn't
No,
see that, right? No, you didn't. But that's another example of how the treatment industry's changed. It's another example of how there is the need to treat different age groups, different disorders is there,
Yeah.
right? And thank God that I work for a place that is able to do that, and take in whoever needs it. Now, I mean, look, there are some exceptions, right? There are some exceptions to the rule. You get some people in and we can't take care of.
Yeah. Well, I think at that point it's not, because it's not primarily substances.
Right.
It's like the substances are somewhere down along the.
And I hate to use the word can't. It's there are some instances where we are not capable of caring for certain people's individual needs, right?
Stability.
Right.
Stability's
and
not there.
Go stabilize and then come back to us.
Yeah. And look, I think we've all been there, Jeff. God knows that I don't know this for a fact, but I can't believe you haven't been to a mental institution or once or twice.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, I have been.
Yeah. See, that's what I said. I already knew that. Like I just could take that guess. And when we talk about this, man, is like I was talking with a client the other day that hadn't been to treatment in about 8 or 9 years.
Yeah.
He comes in my office and he's, oh, this and oh, that and blah, blah, blah. And I think it's important that potential clients, whatever it may be, understand that this ain't the treatment center. The treatment's not what it was 9 years ago.
Right.
Like, you have to know that as a client. We are, but also look at that as a opportunity, a benefit.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
like what's offered now. I mean, look, man, we talked about it in another episode. Primary care services. We have psychiatrists coming in.
Oh, absolutely.
We have all this different stuff that can be offered as, again, help to the person that says, I need help.
Right, and that's how you tailor your industry to the client, right? And it's all individually based. There used to be a set program that you went by,
like a cookie cut.
Like, this is a cookie cut.
Week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4.
This is how you do it, right?
Yeah.
You do your drug history, you do this, and as long as you do these, then you finish the program. But it's not like that no more, right? This is like we said a couple episodes ago. This is treatment, right? And we're trying to treat you. And what's opened up so much more is how we treat you and how we treat you on an individual basis, right? So you think about like your clientele. So you'll have no more than 12 people in a group, right? But you'll have each individual person with their own underlying issues, and you have to treat them differently. You can't give everybody in the same room the same assignment.
No.
And expect to get to some.
Yeah, I was gonna say you could,
right?
But is that going to be most beneficial to them? And that's what we're trying to do.
Well, you remember, there's no secret that I was your counselor at one point in time, right?
Well, in the many times I've been to.
And if you remember, I would think about the person's issues that they had, and I would try to tailor my assignments that would most be helpful to them and their treatment, right? And one of the things that I had to do as a counselor and also as an individual in recovery was set my recovery aspect aside and focus on the clinical aspect, right? How I can clinically help you and treat your issues, right? And I think that's kind of how a lot of counselors in this industry and in our facilities too have kind of grown.
Yeah, I think that's what makes the best counselor.
Yeah, I think if you have the experience with addiction and the experience as in the clinical industry, you have to constantly educate yourself too, and the education that we give in the training helps you with that as well in these group settings, because you never know what you're going to get. Somebody's going to come in And you may think to yourself, this person's crazy, but a lot of people are, coming off this drug psychosis,
Oh
right?
yeah,
And
man.
so you have, there's a couple of days periods where you got to let them stabilize as well, and you have to be able to learn how to deal with that, right? And so I think that's another thing that's changed in this industry is the training aspect,
Yeah.
right? Look, I'll even go as far as to say this in at the facility level, right? There's some things that we have to go by these guidelines by Louisiana Department
Yeah.
of Health, right? They've even implemented, that you have to do workplace violence, annually. You have to have these trainings for crisis prevention,
Yeah.
nonviolent, all these things, right? Because of the way things have changed, right? They see the different clientele that these facilities get. Even in the world itself, it seems to be more violent,
Yeah.
right? And we, as a facility and as an industry, have to continuously grow in that area to meet the needs and keep our staff safe.
Yeah.
Not only the clients, but the staff safe. But it's changed, man. And if we're not changing with it, then what are we doing? Randy always says, if you're not growing, you're dying, right? And I get that, right? I do get that, and I think my original thought on that was a little bit different, but then I started thinking about it and praying and understanding kind of what he was saying in that aspect of like, if we're not growing, then as an industry, we're dying, and growing is helping the people that are also
Yes.
changing in this industry,
Yeah.
right? In the addiction world, right? So how many people can we help, right? All these people have their own individual problems, and what can we do to change to meet as many people as we can to
Yeah.
help? You know
Yeah.
what I
At the end of
mean?
the day, like that's still what we're here to
Mhm.
do. The primary,
Absolutely.
is to help people. I
Mhm.
was gonna say just like small caveat, Randy, that
Mhm.
you keep throwing this. That's the boss man.
Yeah, he's the one that started Woodlake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The beginning. The founder.
Right.
Yeah.
I like for him to call me the boss man, but
Well, that's what everyone refers to you as. I
yeah,
think, at least in front of you. Uh,
what did they say behind me, man?
um, yeah, man. I think that we talk about
Mhm.
working for this working in this industry, but also working for
Yeah.
the company that we work for Woodlake. But even this, man, let's talk about this. Even this platform that
Mhm.
they've provided, with the world changing,
Yeah.
like and hey, let's
In this social aspect,
like
how
yeah,
can
like
we?
let's
Yeah.
how do we help more people? How do we
Mhm.
put stuff out there? Let's start a podcast.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what we offer, what we can do, how we can help do these
Yeah.
things. And even being willing to do something like this,
Mhm.
I think just shows um, the willingness, the growth to help
Mhm.
other people. I love that, man. I think that it's great to work for a place that wants to help. We don't want to turn people away.
Mhm.
We don't want to not be prepared for. Man, it's when someone reaches out and says,
Mhm.
"I need help."
Yeah.
You don't want to say,
Can't help you
"I can't help you,"
because of this right here,
because
right?
remember, like from somebody, both of us
Mhm.
at one point reached out and said, "I need help."
Mhm.
Right? To get to that point, you're beat up.
Oh,
You're beat to
absolutely.
hell. You're beat
Yeah,
up.
man.
And
It
to and to
takes a lot.
and to call a place and then be like,
Mhm.
sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, can't. It's just deflating.
Mhm.
And that could be the difference in life or death
Absolutely.
if you're really looking at it that way.
Well, and that's why you got to continuously find ways to grow on
Yeah.
and meet the individual needs.
Yeah.
Right. It used to be, hey, if you had commercial insurance, this is all you take, right? But then the availability opened up for more people to attend treatment,
Yeah.
right? I think sometimes I think the sad part is that with that you also see the unfortunate is that it also opened up areas for people to go to treatment multiple times and multiple times. But you get it when you get it, you know, and you get it when you surrender and, you know, and say this is enough.
Yeah.
Right? But that's the hard part about it, you know?
Well, and thank goodness I'm not the one that makes that call.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, who am I? You know, it's like, yeah, I could be, say, this guy's coming this many times, this, that, you know, I'm just grateful I'm not the one that makes that call.
Yeah.
You know, because how many times does it take it? You know, and look, and I went to a convention not long ago, and I remember this doctor sitting up on the stage, and he said something that kind of hit me. Because, you know, now with even medication assisted treatment and all this different stuff, and as you said, man,
Oh man, I tell you, I was that's another thing.
yeah, you weren't on board at first.
Well, that's another thing that's changed with me as well. Is like, you know, we talk about meeting the needs. It was how medication was distributed and the other, I guess, assisted medications now that they have out there that make it a little bit. I've grown because I had this idea that, you know, recovery stops at this right here. This is the only way you can recover.
And it goes back to what you're talking about: A, B, C, D, E.
And I still believe that, you know, 12-step program is, you know, is part of the means, right? But there's also a lot of pathways to that, to your recovery,
absolutely,
and deleting in that. And I've seen a lot of success in that. I know some people are completely still against it, and it's somebody that, you know, that was, and my eyes have been opened up and seen some success in there, and in us allowing and doing that as a facility and opening that up. And you know, we got somebody, you know, works with us that is a success story, man. And
I'm seeing, you know, I like to say I run it. You know, I run the MAP program in Denham.
Right.
I don't. I just, but I get to interview all the people that are, and man, I got to tell you, like, and I'm not saying do it, don't do it. It's nothing like that, right? I'm just saying that as science and things continue to change, going back to the treatment industry changing, it's come a long way, and we are seeing a lot of success with it. You know, but I want to say that doctor at that convention made a statement to me that was very simple statement, but was very powerful. And he said, we can't treat addicts and alcoholics if they're dead.
Right. Absolutely.
You know, and it's like, that's what he said. He said, we can't treat them if they're dead. And so he was talking about how all of this has to change. Everything, the industry, as physicians, as clinicians, as administrators, as this, and he was kind of giving this presentation, but he made that just very simple and powerful statement. And it's like, and that's what kind of is like, okay.
Yeah. And I think it's the view of addiction.
Yeah.
You know, how can we help the people the most that need the help? Right. So yeah, man, I who knows what the industry is going to be like, you know, 10 years from now. You know, who knows what new substance is going to happen, but as long as we continue to change along with, you know, that lifestyle and those that are needing help, and continue to be able to provide. I'm hoping that we'll be around at that time to be able to continue.
Yeah, and I think that based on history and based on, you know, experience with Woodlake, you know, we'll continue to change to meet the needs.
Absolutely.
You know? At the end of the day, I know this that we're here to help.
Yeah.
When people reach out, we want to be able to say, you know, we're here to help.
Yeah.
So, all right, man. Well, thanks.
Yeah, man.
Thanks
Absolutely, dude. We'll see you next time, bro.
Yes, sir, man. You guys, thank you for joining us here on Beyond the Struggle.